Okay, let's stick with our admin controller, and what we're going to do is add the functionality for this particular method. And what we want to do here is return the users with their roles. Now, the user manager doesn't actually come with this functionality, surprisingly, but what we're going to do is need to use a query to go and get all of the users with their specified roles, because what we want the admin user to be able to do is edit a user's roles. So what we'll do is we'll add a constructor to our admin controller, and we're going to inject in here the user manager of type app user, and we'll call it user manager. And we'll just bring in ASPNET Core identity and the API entities in here as well. And then we'll initialize the field from parameter. So inside this get users with roles method, we're going to need to make this an async method. So we'll say async, and we're going to return a task of type action results, and we'll need to bring in system threading tasks. And what we'll do inside here, what we're going to do is say var users equals, and then we're going to say await, and we're going to use our user manager, and we're going to get our users. And what we need to do is specify include, and we'll need to bring in Microsoft Entity Framework Core, and we'll include, and we'll say r goes to r.roles, or user roles in this case. And then to remove the annoying warnings, I'm just going to say toList async, because we're going to project in here, we're going to select what we're looking for inside our users. And what we need to do then is say len include, and we're going to say r goes to r.role. So we need to get our user roles related list of user roles, but we also need to include the role itself inside there. So we need the then include this time. And then we're going to add an order by expression, and we'll bring in system.link to use this. And we'll say that we're going to order by the u goes to u.username. And then we'll use select so that we can project out of this, and we'll say u goes to new, and we're just going to return an anonymous object. And to do that, we just open up curly brackets in this case. We don't have a type for what we're returning here, so we'll just use an anonymous object. Perfectly fine to do this. And what we'll do is we'll say u.id for the user's ID, and then we'll say the username is equal to u.username, and then we'll say that the roles is equal to u.roles, or user roles, and then we're going to select, and what we want to get from here is the role name. So we'll say r goes to r.role, and then the name, and then we're going to send list to a list. So we're going to get an object back with the user's ID, their username, and the roles that they're in. And then we're sending that to a list. And then what we'll do is we'll return OK, and we're going to return our users. Now, we're not paginating these results or anything like that. Obviously, you could add this, but we're going to focus on role management in this particular lesson. We've already covered how we can use pagination in a few different places in our app. So what we'll do, now that we have this method in place, let's go and test. And we'll go back to our get roles as admin method, and let's click on send. And what we can see now is that we get a list of our users with the roles that they're in, and the admin is in both the admin and moderator role, whereas all of the others should just be inside the member role. And that's what we're looking for from this. And what we're going to do is allow the admin user to edit the roles that users are in, and we'll take a look at how we can do that next. Okay, so let's give the admin user the ability to edit the roles that a user is in. And what we'll do, we'll go back to our admin controller, and we'll create a new method, and we'll just make this an HTTP post, and we'll call it edit-roles. And we'll take as a root parameter the user's username. And what we'll do, we'll say public async task, and again we're just going to return an action result from this, and we're just going to say edit roles, and we'll take the string as the username, and then what we're going to do is pass up the roles as a query string. So we're going to get the username from the root parameter, but then we also want to do something with a query string as well. So what we'll do is we'll specify from query here, because this will definitely confuse our API controller if we don't do it. And then we're going to take a string of the roles. And we're going to get that from our query string. So what we'll do is we'll say var selected roles, and these are going to come up as a comma separated list. So what we'll do is we'll say roles.split, and we're going to split them by the comma, and then we're going to pass these out to an array. And remember, we're going to get these from our query string. So we're going to have member, comma, admin, or member, comma, moderator, etc. And then we're going to split them to an array inside here. Then we'll say var user equals await, and then we'll go to our user manager, and we'll use the find by name async, and we'll pass in our username. And then we can say var user roles equals await, and we'll go to our user manager, and what we'll do is we'll say get roles async, and we'll pass in our user, which is going to give us our list of roles for this particular user. And then what we want to do is take a look at the list of roles and add the user to the roles unless they're already in that particular role. And the way that we can do that, we can say var result equals await and user manager dot add to roles async, and we're going to pass in the user, and then we're going to pass in the selected roles, and we can use except, and then we can pass in the user roles, which is the user roles the user is currently in. And then we can check to see if that succeeded or not. And we'll use the not operator, and we'll say result.succeeded. And if this fails, we're just going to return a bad request and say failed to add to roles. And what we'll do after this is we'll say that our result is equal to, and then we'll say await user manager, and then we'll say remove from roles async, and once again we'll pass in the user, and then we'll say user roles, and this is the user roles the user is currently in at this point, and then we'll say except, and then we'll pass in selected roles. And once again we'll check the status of the result, so we'll use result succeeded with the not operator, and then we'll return a bad request, and we'll say failed to remove from roles. And if we get this far, we can return OK, and what we'll do is we'll await, and then we'll say user manager, and we'll get the roles async for this specific user so that we return them as well. Okay, let's just review this method, because what we should do in here at this point, because we're getting the username from a root parameter, what we want to do is check to make sure that we have a user in there. So we're going to say if user is equal to null, then we're going to return not found. And we're just going to say could not find user. Otherwise we'll get an exception, because if we try and execute this method on null, then this is going to return an exception to us. So that should be fine, and let's go test this functionality in Postman. So inside Postman we have a request to edit the roles for Lisa. So we've got the URL, and we're going to Lisa, and we're setting Lisa's roles to moderator and member. So if we click on send, then we get the 200 OK, and we get the roles that now Lisa is in. And if we take a look and say get roles as admin again, and click this particular request, then what we'll find, if we scroll down to Lisa, Lisa's now in 2 different roles. And what we should be able to do is, as Lisa in this request, now Lisa's a moderator, Lisa should be able to access this request. She was forbidden before. If we click it now, she's still going to be forbidden, because we need to go and get a new token, because the current token has the previous roles that Lisa was in. So we'll log in as Lisa again, and we'll click send. We'll get the new token, and if we go to the photos to moderate as Lisa, and whilst we had 403 before, what we should have now is a 200 OK, because Lisa is now a moderator. So now we have a way to edit our user roles. And what we'll do next is we'll take a look at what we need to do in Angular to set this up as well.